Hey, Ryan Roy from Justifier, Just Do It here. Take these headphones out. Hey guys, I'm listening to an audio of Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill, and it was actually just released in 2011 by Sharon Lechter, I believe is her name, which is also the co-author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, So by Robert Kiyosaki. This woman is high in the financial area, and as the book Outwitting the Devil is actually Napoleon Hill's conversation with the devil, both sides of it. It's actually very interesting, and it took him nearly 25 years to put this work together, which he never released. His family never released, and now that everyone that knew anything about it is deceased and it got turned over to his estate, it was just released in 2011. So as I'm listening, they're talking about failure. The devil's talking about failure is one of your greatest assets, but it's only in your mind. Failure is just something in your mind. You have never really failed at anything. They are all just lessons, unless you give in and give up. That is when you've actually failed. So, if you continue to try at anything, you try to succeed in life, you're working towards goals consistently, as long as you haven't completely given up, you've never failed. And I started, as I'm doing this, I just had to stop the audio because I started thinking in my own life in areas that I would have considered failure in the past. And I'll share this one with you. When I was in college, I was putting myself through college. I was working as a waiter in a high-end steakhouse. I was making pretty decent money. I always had money saved aside for the next, semester's tuition. And I was always very active. I played in a flag football on a team that played in multiple leagues, and we also traveled. And during one of our tournaments one weekend, it was early December, it was cold out, and maybe the bones were a little brittle. I guess that'll give you a hint as to what happened next, as I caught a low pass and fell on my shoulder and breaking through my collarbone. It just kind of shattered. And I had to make a decision. I was about to sign up for the next semester, but I had a certain amount of money. I wasn't able to work for 2 months. So I used my tuition money to live off of and pay my bills. I had my own apartment, had a car payment, and I also had some savings. I'll never forget the day that I was going back to work, and I looked at my bank account, and to the penny, I had $1 left in my bank account. Not 103, not 97. I had $1 freaking dollar exactly left in my bank account the day I was going back to work. And I had always been in a position of having savings and no debt, and I literally broke down and cried because I considered myself a failure in that moment. Where most people, if they had 2 months off and were only $1 left in their bank account, would probably be ecstatic that they're going back to work and they're not in debt, but they're $1. But some habits started to be formed in those 2 months. Is I got in the habit of going out and spending money. I got in the habit of going out with my friends because I couldn't work. Some of my friends were just kind of taking care of the bill for me and things like that. But once I started making money again, I got in this poor habit and actually went about $12,000 in debt over the next, let's say, year, when I had always had a surplus of money. Just racked it up on credit cards, never paid minimums, but, paid what I could until I created a system for me to get out of that debt, which took me about 6 months by saving, not going out and do what I had to do. It created a life skill for me that I already had, but now I had to put it to use, not to save money, to get myself out of debt. And then it brings me to another point in my life where I used OPM or other people's money to create wealth for myself. And at some point, with an economic downturn and multiple properties that I acquired on the sly, if you would, I call it on the slide now, because what they were doing back then, giving people loans that people didn't deserve or qualify for, and I'll admit it, I don't want to say victim, but I fell into the trap of, hey, they're going to give me a house, I'm going to buy it, then I'm just going to resell it for more money. And I was doing this and doing it well for a little while, until at one point I had about $1.3 million in property and debt that I had every intention of repaying, but the economy went south, houses stopped selling, it got really out of people's price ranges, the banks actually stopped giving out those easy loans, so not everybody could just get a loan, and loans were coming hard to get, and people weren't qualifying for, working a minimum wage job, making, buying a $400,000 house anymore. So at $1.3 million in debt, I had to make a choice. And what I did, my choice was to, I depleted all my assets and actually went a little bit further into debt to accumulate to that 1.3. But I did everything I possibly could with the knowledge that I had at the time to actually try to sell those houses and pay off those debts. Unfortunately, that didn't happen for me. What did happen was making choices between, should I pay my car insurance or my car payment? Choices such as, do I live in this house of a $3,000 mortgage, or do I move out and let them get rid of it whichever way they have to and go live in a less expensive property? The choices got to a point of I had zero money, and I was making, I had internet still, I had a cell phone, my entertainment was actually watching YouTube and making YouTube videos. Kind of funny, that's what I do now. And I remember there was a software out there for like $30 that would make my YouTube experience that much more fun by being able to make these cooler videos. Seeing I had no budget for entertainment, because I had no budget to pay anything really. It was $30, and I remember making a conscious choice in that moment in my life not to spend $30 on something that would have actually brought me some joy, but I didn't find it the right thing to do, considering I owed people hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it was a low point in my life. But I very specifically remember exactly where I was sitting when I was about to purchase it, and I told myself, I don't deserve it. I've failed myself. I've failed all these people that were relying on me to repay these debts, and who am I to have fun when if I can't pay them the hundreds of thousands, I don't even deserve to pay myself $30 to enjoy anything in life. It's interesting, as I'm speaking it out loud, I never even really thought of it in those terms, but I considered myself a failure at that point. Now, looking back, getting myself hurt was uncontrollable, and I had a plan in place that got me to $1 left in my bank account. Circumstances created a scenario where, get some of this out of there, you go. Created a scenario where I ended up falling trapped to certain bad habits that got me into another thing, but the previous good habit of budgeting and taking care of my money got me out of that, but allowed me to know that if I were ever to get myself in any type of trouble financially, I would be able to dig myself out. Using other people's money for investment purposes is not a bad thing, as long as you don't get it out of control with it, and you have a plan, and you're not getting in way over your head. And all these things have served me. All these quote-unquote failures in my life have served me in a way that I've lived life. I've taken chances. I have, and I remember soon after, not after my bankruptcy, because I did file for bankruptcy and got cleared of the $1.3 million in debt simply because I had nothing to show for it. Because I had depleted all my funds trying to repay the banks and use resources to try to sell these houses, to the point of I had no resources left, and that's why I declared bankruptcy. But I remember before I declared bankruptcy thinking to myself, Ryan, why don't you just get a job? Why don't you just get a job and do what everybody else does? And I actually called my financial advisor, which had control of my IRAs at the time, which had money in it, but they can't touch the retirement accounts. And I told him that I'd make a promise to send him money and just go the slow route. He was all excited, right? It's a good friend of mine. And I did that for about a year once I got myself back in good standing and got a job and was making good money, you know, what most people consider good money, but far less than I was making flipping those houses. And at some point I just realized that this is not me. If I give in and do something that I'm not really wanting to do, which is go to a job and work for somebody else, because it's kind of not one of those that they say I have the managerial potential, because I get it, but I don't have the patience to deal with corporate America in the way that corporate America wants me to deal with employees, and therefore I can't be management. I just don't have that mindset. Never have, never will. And had I given in to those thoughts, had I given into, yeah, let me just do what everybody else does because that's what gets people by, and in my misery of my failure at the time, I was like, this I don't want to feel this pain again. And you're right, I still don't want to feel that pain again, but I sure as heck don't want the pain of everyday living, of what I consider going to a job, doing something that's not fulfilling, and going through that pain on a daily basis, which is just like numbing. You don't even realize you're in that pain. You're just going and floating through life, in my opinion. Many people are very happy in their jobs. Please don't get me wrong. I am not one of those people. So, definition of failure is if I would have given into those thoughts. But because I continue to make these YouTube videos, and now I coach, and now I work from home, and I get to make these videos when I'm going from point A to point B, wherever I may be going, or in my office, or on the beach, or wherever I decide to do this, I have not given in, nor have I failed. I've not failed in this thing we call life. I did not fail when I was $12,000 in debt and dug myself out because I didn't give up. I did not fail when I was $1.3 million in debt, and the laws were created to help people in that scenario, and I got out. I would have been a failure if I said, oh, you know, I had to declare bankruptcy. You know what? It gave me a restart. And that restart is a gift. So whenever you're given a gift like that, take advantage of it. And go wholeheartedly towards your goals again. Having made mistakes, you learn from your mistakes. And when you learn from your mistakes and your quote-unquote mini failures, then everything is that much better. So this is Ryan from Justifier Just Do It Coaching. Failure is a state of mind. If you've failed in your mind and you have given up, yes, you have failed. If you haven't given up yet, realize you haven't failed. Have an amazing day, everybody. Until next time.